My parents were these young activists, both my mother and father, and they were very young. My parents got married when my father was 17 and she was 14, and they eloped. I never knew that we were poor, because we were actually poor. I've never went to bed hungry, and I've always had a mat on the floor to sleep on. I started my life at the beginning poor, but not aware of it, and became an ambassador's daughter. I knew that we lived in a totally different lifestyle than a lot of people that I knew. And then, like overnight, in 1969, there was a revolution in Somalia, and the whole country was complete lockdown, and of course all the embassies were shut down. And within, I would say, a month, people literally were being either executed or arrested. A lifetime arrest. My mother got very, very worried that soon it will happen the same thing to my father and we will be in the same fate. So she decided one night, in the middle of the night, that she would just rent a van and didn't tell us and woke us up in the middle of the night, like around 3 a.m., shoved us in this van, and we crossed the border of Kenya by foot. So overnight, my life was totally transformed from an ambassador's daughter to a refugee. I mean, for all the money I have made in this country, there's one thing that I can never, ever be able to give my parents, and that's for them to go back home in their old age and die there in Somalia and be buried there. So for them, they're refugees for life, you know. So people don't understand how heavy that weighs on families. I could never forget how dehumanizing it feels, not to beg, but to be helpless. And for me, as I said, I'm my father's daughter, I'm very close to my dad. To see him in that condition, it broke my heart. Literally broke my heart. The frustration that you can see in my father's eye and in my parents' eye, the humility and the loss of everything. I mean, my parents left with one picture of each of us. One picture. We left our families, we left our friends, we left our heritage, culture. So I've always tried to really make people understand what refugees are, you know, because I am one. And then one day, lo and behold, while I was crossing on my way to the campus, this photographer by the name Peter Beard stopped me and said, have you ever been photographed before? Mind you, I've never seen fashion magazines in my life. I've never worn makeup or heels for that matter. So I had no idea what he was talking about. But I thought, oh God, here we go, another white man who thinks Africans have never seen a camera before or never been photographed. I said, yes, I have. And he said, what magazine? And I said, my parents. And he said, I'd like to take your pictures. And as I kept on walking, he said the magic word. He said, I'll pay you. And I said, well, how much? He said, well, how much do you want? And right there and there on the streets of Nairobi, on my way to campus, I made my first modeling transaction. And I said $8,000 because that was the tuition. And a couple of months later, he brought the pictures to America, and they called for me, and I have been here since then. At the time when I came to America, everybody used to say, oh, she's beautiful as the girl next door. That usually applied to a blonde, blue-eyed, you know. And as the neighborhoods changed, the girl next door changed. And then I changed with the language of what women of color in this country. I mean, women of color in this country usually was just for black women. So I created the language of women with skin of color, that meaning Latinas, Asians, Native Americans, you know, that whole spectrum of people. Being a refugee and being a child refugee, although a teenager, it never left me how the kids are the ones who fall through the cracks usually. Women and children fall through the cracks. It's the most disheartening thing for me as an African to hear about orphans. I've never heard in my Somalia about orphans. There was always a family member who took somebody in. if their parents died. I've never heard of an orphan. The problem is we need to save mom and dad. Those children, as much as they want love, or anybody to love them, it's more important for us to save mom and dad. And it is possible for us to save mom and dad. It's not lost on me that what sustains the continent of Africa really starts with women, and the fabric of that is being really destroyed. The conflict of what it's doing morally on the violence, the sexual violence, the rape of women and children in Congo is the rape of a whole continent and a whole country. When families and communities are destroyed in that way, there is a moral issue at stake, and people keep it on for generations and generations. All of them need enough time. We all need a point of just saying, okay, enough of this now. The African women, and I would say especially in Congo, they know what they need. It's not for us, all of us, to decide for them on the outside of what they need. What they need is help so that we can structure for them what is available to them, what they can start again their communities. Obviously, one of it is to stop the violence against women and children, But also, as we're talking about, is building communities, is building infrastructures, is building small businesses for themselves. I could not literally say that I could live, I could sleep, and I could say, yes, I'll take that money, because everybody says they're not sure. But I know I will be clear conscience if I don't be part of it. So I terminated my contract. So what I'm saying, it's very easy for everybody, if they really want to have a conscience, it's just ask. Make that call and ask that we want these phones to be not part of that company.